That's a crazy story.
Whoops. Dang it. Made an oopsie. Today on the Shrewd Dudes podcast, we are going to talk about a few different things.
Just a few.
Just a few. And this week in satire, we are going to both address the liberals rejecting those who are coming to Martha's Vineyard, and also Stacey Abrams smashing through a wall like the Kool-Aid Man.
She is big enough.
Because that is her duty as the rightful governor of Georgia.
Got to claim that throne.
Yeah. And then in our rants of the week, we're going to talk about how Stacey Abrams and Chrissy Teigen are just both being pompous asses.
Insufferable.
And deliberately lying about abortion to try and politicize and mislead the public. And then finally, we're going to have a bit of a shorter episode today. We're going to finish off with a nothing to see here. And we are going to talk about the Vanderbilt Clinic and transgenderism and the marginalization of women. All of that. All of that.
All of that.
So, all of that and more on the Shrewd Dudes podcast. And I'm going to actually start the intro for real instead of an accidental. I clicked the button.
He touched the button.
All right, we are back for another Thursday live stream. We are late. I understand that. There was just a few things. We were trying to actually find stories, and then we're like, dang it, it's just a short news day. So we're just going to focus on what we have.
Like we have had weeks where we have had
stories upon stories upon stories.
Possibly fit everything,
and then this week is just
show. And I was like,
don't have the interest to talk about this stuff.
Nothing is happening in Russia.
I'm like, I do not have the interest to talk about inflation rate hikes.
Not particularly.
It's like,
Canada was fairly boring this week. Like nothing crazy. And then it just happens sometimes. Even today when I was watching Ladder with Crowder, they basically said it's a slow news day. So they're basically just kind of like doing a lot of improv. And I was like, okay, well that works. And that's something that happens a lot in just this whole in this whole field. If you do news political commentary, news commentary, you're going to run into days where you're just going to have nothing.
You're just grasping at straws and extending those stories much longer than they need to be talked about. Because you just got to fill the time. And then other times it's I have to squish everything in, so I have to bring about 20 extra different topics.
Like last week when I decided to do that one long segment.
Oh, yeah.
And I really liked it. I don't know. I thought it was a topic worth talking about.
Well, it was definitely a topic worth talking about, but it was just
very long. I know. Which is why we cut it down to 2 segments. But that last week was totally done on purpose because I knew that segment was going to be long. But I thought it was worth doing. This week is there's just not a lot of cannon fodder out there. But Stephen, you look like you have the stink eye today. What's going on?
I'm back working in the dust, and yesterday I was working until 7 p.m. And I'm just all the time that I'm working, when I'm working with the gravel truck, I'm just covered in it. And so some days my eye is just bothered to the extreme, and today was one of those days, and it was super bright out, and so I was just, my eye is not too happy right now.
Well, I mean, you're gonna get enough dust in there, your eye will get super dry and very irritated.
Yeah,
but hopefully you're not irritated. Hopefully you got that little funkiness, that saltiness that makes you I
was irritated by my coworker.
What's going on?
Before lunch. Well, because he's just a mooch. And he basically just demands that people drive him places. And so I'm like, okay, once or twice a week, I'll go to Costco for lunch. just because it's cheap, and you can get a hot dog for $1.50. And I'm like, yeah, I was thinking of maybe going to Costco. And he tells me, are you sure that going to Costco is effective with all the places that you have to take me? And I'm like, what? I'm like, I don't have to take you anywhere. I choose to, because otherwise you just get super whiny. And it's like, everybody hates me. And I'm like, yes, they kind of do, because you're always like this. Because everything is woe is me. And then, yeah, the foreman got super pissed at him because he was basically just like standing there, like pondering his life instead of while we were supposed to be working.
Uh-huh.
And he's like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, like I have to pay back all this money. And he's like, I don't care. I don't care what you have to pay back. You're here for work. Do it.
Kind of losing his focus, but.
Mm-hmm. And so, and then my foreman just comes up to me and he's like, can you adopt him? And I'm like, heck no. I got enough problems. And I'm like, he's 40. And doesn't have his life right. I'm not adopting him.
Sounds like you have to babysit a lot of people at your work.
I do. I do have to babysit them.
Hmm.
And I get these, like, it's kind of funny because they're like, Steven, sometimes it's okay to be mean. And I'm like, but I'm like, so it's okay to be like tough and like stick to your guns. Mm-hmm. But there's a difference between like having a firm line and then just being a dick about it.
Yeah, you can be. I mean, you're a papa, so you know how to pull that that put your foot down kind of thing. So
yep. But anyways, we do have to go into the topics which we're going to be discussing today. So let's jump into the This Week in Satire / humorous videos.
Let's do this, man.
So we'll start off with the Freedom Tunes.
What's the first one, man?
Well, the Freedom Tunes is the first one, and it is titled "If You Give Martha's Vineyard a Migrant." So really I think you can tell how this is going to go, but it is humorous. So let's go for it.
Seamus.
I don't think we can handle this many new people.
Shut it. Diversity is our strength. Where are you headed, traveler? My friend here has a spare room in his house.
I love how the gun sticks in his
face. To Martha's Vineyard.
Martha's Vineyard!
Sound the alarm!
Get out of my neighborhood! Get out of my neighborhood!
Come on, man!
Die!
I'm fine with human trafficking, but it has to be done through the proper channels. They're not sending us their best. They're sending us their smelly. They're sending us their men. They're over the age of 18. And some of them, I assume, I could have relations with.
Oh, Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton. Did you notice that little hidden joke that they threw in there about Obama?
Mm-hmm.
Did you see it, Steven?
Yep.
Like how he's holding his gun?
Yep.
He's like holding his gun towards him, like, yep. Nicely done, people. Nicely done. Seamus, we salute you.
Always.
Yeah. This is why they just absolutely like crush it. Because like Freedom Tunes doesn't just make humor that is actually on point, but like the ways that he makes his message known are so clever. Because I mean, like, you know, like it's exactly what you normally see. You know, like if Obama and Michelle Obama came out, like, you know, with guns, it'd be like, you know, like, oh yeah, they're defending their home, totally cool, like no problems here.
Yeah.
I just loved it. I thought it was really
it was great. It was great.
Yep.
But that's not the only humorous video of the week.
No.
So this one was done by Canadian MP Garnett Genius.
He is a genius.
Yes, he is. So
Yes.
he uses Queen lyrics to mock Trudeau. So let's just check that out.
Whoa, hold on. So a little like background for anybody who hasn't caught up. Obviously, Trudeau was caught, the night before the Queen's funeral. He was caught in a lobby singing Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody, and he got excoriated by the media in England and media in the States and even Canadian media. People were just like, this guy's an absolute like lunatic and fool. The Canadian media was scrambling to protect him. And obviously it was yet another in a long line of Trudeau's embarrassments. Now, normally in Parliament, people would just criticize him outright. But this guy decided to go a little above and beyond. And watch for Chrystia Freeland's face at the end. It was pretty priceless.
Okay.
Speaker, is this real life? Because that answer was pure fantasy. We have inflation, landslides, and no escape from poverty. When will the Prime Minister open up his eyes and see he's not a poor boy, but he should have some sympathy? For too many Canadians, opportunity had just begun, and now this government is going to throw it all away. Money is not easy come, easy go in this economy. So when will the government...
that guy's face next to him
and spare us from this inflation monstrosity?
Minister. Look at her face. She's like, I'm not impressed.
I'm not impressed.
Not impressed. I don't know if you saw this, Steven. Somebody shared a meme where like you have like Chrystia Freeland has this face that she makes when she's like in a just like outrage, and somebody like put it next to Bubbles from what do you call it?
Trailer Park Boys.
Trailer Park Boys, and then they actually like merged their faces together, and I'm like, it is glorious because she has the biggest sour face ever. She is such a sour face. If she's the next leader of the Liberals, if Justin Trudeau is kicked out, they're gonna have a tough time winning any kind of like contest. Because
all the Conservatives will need to do will just have billboards of her face.
Yep.
And then it'll be like, yep. She gives it up.
See what you want about Rachel Notley. At least she's not like, she doesn't have a Chrystia Freeland face.
Yep. Is this woman coming? Oh, that's like a scarf weird thing. I was like, is she literally coming to the House of Commons in her bathrobe?
It kind of looks like it, doesn't it?
I think it's a decorative scarf, but I was questioning my own sanity for a second there.
It kind of does look like a bathrobe. I'll give you that.
Anyways, moving on to the Babylon Bee. So Stacey Abrams bursts through wall like Kool-Aid Man to tell overjoyed mother that the heartbeat sound she's hearing is fake.
How dare you?
Local couple is in shock today after a startling visit from rightful Georgia Governor Stacey Abrams. According to sources, the couple was listening to the heartbeat of their child in sonogram for the very first time when Abrams burst through the wall like the Kool-Aid Man to inform them the heartbeat sound they were hearing was fake. Turn off that ultrasound machine! cried Abrams through a cloud of dust and debris. That heartbeat is fake. It was invented by the patriarchy to trick you into feeling love for your baby. Run away while you still can.
I think it's got to be more shrill, like way more shrill.
Okay, I'll try that next time. Governor Abrams went on to explain the couple of the images of their baby's face they were seeing on the screen were not really their baby's face at all, but a collection of pixels on an LCD screen created by men to make it easier to control women's bodies.
Of course.
So from the family, we were shocked by her sudden entrance, but we're so thankful she helped us to see the light, said the new mother to reporters. Now I can divorce my husband and abort this baby before my life becomes literally The Handmaid's Tale.
It's always literally.
The mother's eyes then caught a glimpse of her baby's smile on the screen, and she was overcome by overwhelming maternal love. Sources say she wrapped her arms around her husband and agreed to keep the baby. Drat, foiled again.
Oh boy.
Oh, Stacey Abrams.
What
will she do next?
You know, like, it's funny because she tries to like portray herself as like the ultimate person of the people, but she's like as insufferable.
Oh, she's so insufferable.
Oh, it's like I've seen a lot of like Democrat politicians, like the female, like the feminist ones and all that. And like I'll give them this, that they at least know how to like do a public persona like fairly okay. Like ALC, I'm not a big fan. Or what was the Somalian lady?
Ilhan Omar.
Ilhan Omar. At least they know how to do a public persona. But Stacey Abrams, like you see
Even
her,
though Ilhan Omar's public persona is
like
a brother
angry
marrying psychopath.
Of course, but we don't talk about that.
We don't talk about that.
It stays in the family. Stays in the family.
Please do not make it stay in the family.
Well, apparently, she's definitely making a stick.
Yep. Incest is just oh so cool.
Lovely.
Yep. But this transitions into the rant of the week. Because Stacey Abrams not only is the topic of this week in satire, but she is also that hole bursting through the door is only slightly less than what she actually did. So now we are going to talk about that. I know. Just so classy.
Your transitions have transformed from actual attempts at transitions to just saying
Red alert.
Very nice. Very well done.
I will do as I please. For I am the one in the power.
Yeah, you can tell yourself that.
So, this week's Rant of the Week is about lying about abortion to push a politicized message. Stacey Abrams says there's no such thing as a 6-week fetal heartbeat. Manufactured sound. When I was looking this up, there was actually an article from Jezebel saying that she was speaking truth to power. And I'm like, of course. Nope. Abrams claimed manufactured heartbeat sound is an attempt by men to control women's bodies.
Yeah, so like, I'm going to go out on a limb and imagine like, okay, so she's implying that somebody who created these ultrasound machines like recorded a fake heartbeat and like plugged it into the system so that you hear like the fake heartbeat just in a grand bid, a massive conspiracy to fool millions of women into thinking that the heartbeat is like, oh, they're dastardly, those Republicans.
Yeah, those Republicans.
That's right.
So from Abrams, there's no such thing as a heartbeat at 6 weeks. Abrams, who is running against incumbent Republican Governor Brian Kemp.
Like, no such thing!
Okay. It's a manufactured sound to convince people that men have the right to take control of a woman's body. Was that shrill enough for you?
No, you got to do more like Steven Crowder. Like, it's a manufactured sound! The sound to convince people!
Oh, so I have to make it shrill and black.
Yeah, that's right. Well, she's black,
Oh, that's true. That's true. Abrams seems to be referring to Georgia's pro-life law passed after the overturning of Roe v. Wade this year. Mm-hmm. The Georgia legislation, known as the Living Infants Fairness and Equality or Heartbeat Bill, bans abortion after a fetal heartbeat is detected, sometimes as early as 6 weeks. The Georgia law includes exceptions for rape and incest, as long as the police report is filed. It allows for later abortions when the mother's life is at risk or a serious medical condition renders the fetus unviable. The law passed in 2019, but a federal judge ruled it unconstitutional and blocked it. The federal appeals court overturned the lower court's ruling, allowing the law to take effect on July 20th.
That's directly as a result of Dobbs, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So apparently she was pro-life until the age of 30, until she began considering a run for office.
Oh.
Dang.
Well, she went Democrat, so you kind of have to be pro-abortion.
So this is the speech in which she said it.
There is no such thing as a heartbeat at 6 weeks. It is a manufactured sound designed to convince people that men have the right to take control of a woman's body away from her.
There is no such thing. There you go.
Boy, you crazy. There's no such thing. It's like
they're going to try and take away your bodies, girl.
You're tripping, boy. You're tripping.
You're tripping. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was, of course, a complete lie. Now, normally with an ultrasound, you're not going to see much at a 6-week ultrasound. They don't book them. 6 weeks is mostly the time in which you get the pregnancy test and discover that you're pregnant.
Wait, what is the age of like gestation that most women find out they're pregnant? Isn't it like
4 to 6 weeks?
Yeah, so like even at 6 weeks, they're barely finding out maybe that they're already pregnant.
Well, 6 to 8 weeks. 6 to 8 weeks. The child is about the size as a pea to a kidney bean. They're really small. So like you're not going to see much on an ultrasound, and you're not going to hear a heartbeat unless you actually like have really advanced technology. But an ultrasound is not going to really determine. It's going to be really hard to detect a heartbeat at 6 weeks. Now, of course, at 10 weeks, you can hear a heartbeat. I've heard that heartbeat at 10 weeks. It's not a manufactured sound.
No.
Because it's not a manufactured sound that when you move it in one direction, like literally you'd have to have the ultrasound like, oh, okay, I got this button, and the button is going to turn on the heartbeat sound. And then I have to be really on top of like turning that heartbeat sound on exactly when I'm in the right spot. Like, man, Stacey Abrams, you conspiratorial nut.
Now, here's the question. Okay, so like, obviously everything, like, obviously, like, Democrats have no problem lying in order to get what they want. So I've no doubt that she would be willing to lie about this, early on. But here's the question. I have heard that a baby's like heartbeat can be detected up to 8 weeks. At 8 weeks. Because I remember like doing some research on the Texas law. And I'm like, okay, 8 weeks seems to be like the more commonly accepted like time when you're probably going to see a heartbeat. Seeming like the range of like, feel a baby feeling pain. I've heard as young as like 12 to 14 weeks that they can feel pain, maybe even younger. But like, like obviously later on you definitely feel it. So do you think like, how likely is it that a baby can have a detectable heartbeat at 6 weeks? Is that more of a rarity or is that like the norm?
Well,
from what you want?
Like in order to detect a heartbeat that early, you'd actually have to do fairly invasive stuff. Like the reason that they've said that they're detecting a heartbeat, from what I remember, it's actually based on studies and reports on the embryos of other species. And it's like, okay, well, in this species, their embryonic development is somewhat similar to humans. And so their embryonic development, you can detect a heartbeat in utero with advanced tech at 6 weeks. And so that's what they're basing that on, because it would be, of course, morally unethical to go in and say, I'm going to detect the fetal heartbeat now, because it's going to significantly disturb the development of that child. And then, of course, later on, you can have fairly advanced ultrasound imaging technology. But that early on, you're not going to actually... It's mostly based on an assumption and a hypothesis, because you'd have to grow a child in a lab to really determine this.
Yeah, so it seems like she's making a big deal about a kind of a... What do you call it? She's making the conversation about 6 weeks as a way of like trying to be like, you see, the pro-lifers or these pro-life people are not even like, they're not scientific or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, let's face it, if you go into an abortion clinic hoping to get an abortion in a state like this, they're going to do a regular ultrasound, right? Which means if a heartbeat cannot be detected on 6 weeks on a regular ultrasound, then they're just going to go ahead and do it anyways. So I don't know. Like I think that there's some truth and some like like mistruths going on here. On the one hand, yeah, it's very rare that you're going to see like a heartbeat at 6 weeks. I could be wrong, but I mean from what I've heard, that seems very early.
It is.
But when she's saying that it's like fake and it's like not even like a heartbeat and all that, I'm like, well, I don't know if that's true. Now there's whether or not that's a heartbeat.
Well, she's essentially saying that like early heartbeat detection is manufactured. And I'm like, no.
No, like it's faked.
Yeah, it's entirely faked. And I'm like, no, it's not. That's not faked. But saying that it's faked at 6 weeks, and it's like, well, you're saying it's fake at 6 weeks because nobody's going to go in and do tests at 6 weeks.
Yeah. I think it's more of an academic question than an actual practical, pragmatic question.
It's more, well, it's entirely meant to mislead.
Yeah.
So she's like, well, if you hear something at 6 weeks, then that's manufactured. And it's like, well, nobody's going to be testing at 6 weeks. And then, of course, the assumption is, oh, yes, well, it's all manufactured. And it's like,
I think that's what's
that's
going
what
on
she's
here.
intending to try. That's the idea that she's intending to try and mislead people with.
It sounds very similar to the idea of when people bring up oh, you're gonna get like charged criminally for having a miscarriage, and like they try to use these these very odd tactics, like obviously dishonest, but so it sounds like a dishonest tactic to try to like claim that like, oh, you're gonna go in for a 6-week abortion and they're gonna find some totally made up sound and tell you like, oh, you can't get an abortion anymore. It's part of it is fear mongering. She's trying to get it into people's head, the idea that, oh my goodness, you could go into like an abortion clinic at 6 weeks and they're not going to let you have an abortion because they're making up these fake heartbeat sounds. It's like a conspiracy thing, right? Like, so they rely on people being fairly poorly informed and trusting that these people like, Stacey Abrams and other officials, people
are being honest and upfront and truthful.
But like we covered last week, people who have a reputation and a tendency to lie and never ever change their tactics can't be trusted. So you can't really trust what Stacey Abrams.
Well, and of course, those on the pro-abortion side, like Stacey Abrams and like Chrissy Teigen, will try and manufacture things to try and push their agenda. So Chrissy Teigen says that she has come to realize she had an abortion, not a miscarriage. So she's spoken about how she has come to realize the loss of her baby during pregnancy 2 years ago was an abortion rather than a miscarriage. The model revealed in 2020 that she had lost the baby at 20 weeks as a result of pregnancy complication. At the time, the loss was described as a miscarriage, and she shared emotional photos from her hospital bedside. She now says that she had to make a difficult and heartbreaking decisions after learning the child would not survive. It became very clear around halfway that he would not survive and that I wouldn't either without any medical intervention. She said she had only recently come to accept the procedure as an abortion to save my life for a baby that had absolutely no chance. She's married to singer, blah, blah, blah. So I told the world, quote, that we had a miscarriage. The world agreed we had a miscarriage, and all the headlines said it was a miscarriage. At first, I became really frustrated that I didn't in the first place say what it was, and that I felt silly that it had taken me over a year to actually understand that we had had an abortion. The couple had already named the unborn child Jack. 2 years ago, when I was pregnant with Jack, John and my third child, I had to make a lot of difficult and heartbreaking decisions. She told the session about having a miscarriage before stopping herself and saying, let's call it what it was. It was an abortion to save my life. So several weeks. This is basically what happened. She had been induced to deliver Jack at 20 weeks after being diagnosed with a partial placental abruption. Placental abruption is when the placenta starts to come away from the inside of the womb wall. She recounted how her bleeding had become heavier, and she went into the hospital where doctors tried bags and bags of blood and transfusions, but they had no effect. After a couple nights in the hospital, my doctor told me exactly what I knew was coming. It was time to say goodbye. Like, this is not an abortion. This is basically, they tried everything they could to save her and the kid, and then it was just, well, unfortunately, we can't. And, like, the way that she's describing, like, the partial placental rupture, that's not something that you see coming. So, I don't know, like, I think that it's much more likely that she's adding this whole part where the doctors told her, oh, this baby has no chance of living, it's just best to abort. Whereas what actually happened is that she went into the hospital for this partial placental rupture. They tried to give her blood transfusion after blood transfusion after blood transfusion. And the bleeding kept coming. And then they're like, okay, well, we have no choice. Like, the baby is likely dead anyway, so we have to remove your child.
Yeah, and that is an abortion.
Well, yes.
I mean, okay,
it's the technicality, but it's not in the spirit of what a normal abortion is.
Well, I think it's important to be very clear because this is what the abortion, pro-abortion, activists are doing in the States. They're trying to blur the lines between an abortion and a miscarriage to try to scare people into thinking oh, when they ban abortion, you're not going to be allowed to have a miscarriage. Mm-hmm. And it's no, it's not. I mean, really, it's not that hard. An abortion is an intentional action taken by a doctor or some healthcare professional to try to basically remove, basically an action that results directly. Their action directly results in the death of the baby inside. Now, there are absolutely times when an abortion is absolutely justified. Mm-hmm. For example, when a mother, for example, when they have to do what do you call that? When the baby implants somewhere in the wrong place. The ectopic pregnancy.
Yeah, ectopic pregnancy.
Ectopic. Okay, that's absolutely vital, and that's absolutely understandable.
No,
the baby
and
has
of course,
survival.
None of the laws which have been passed in various places across the states, no law is going to outlaw any of these procedures.
No. This is not in any way. I don't even think that she should feel ashamed.
No,
in any way about this.
I don't think she's feeling. It's more of I'm shouting my abortion because that's what it was.
It was to brag that
this is something that they want to. She's intentionally trying to say this is something that they want to ban, and I have to shout this out to remind you that this is what they want to keep you from having. And it's no, you are lying to push a false narrative.
Yeah,
and this is it's not in the spirit of what an abortion is. An elective abortion is a deliberate killing and expelling of the child's remains from the uterus.
Well, you have to remember, an abortion is where somebody takes an action that directly or indirectly results in the death of the baby.
Yes.
And when I say directly or indirectly, I mean obviously in the most traditional abortions, they directly do kill the baby by tearing it apart. But there are also ways of indirectly killing the baby, like poisoning it, like Plan B, what's it, Plan B pill, which indirectly results in the death of an already existing life and all that, and things like that. Whereas a miscarriage is you did nothing. You no action of yours resulted in the death, unexpected death of the baby. It's a spontaneous death that you couldn't account for.
Yeah.
What happened with her? It wasn't a miscarriage. This baby didn't die because of a lack of intervention. This baby died because the intervention taken to save her life ended up causing the death of the baby. Now, whether they went in there to kill the baby first and then
I think what probably happened is that they had to do an emergency surgery.
Sure.
And they probably had to remove temporarily remove her womb and then start fresh.
Basically, whatever actions they took to try to basically save her life, resulted in the death of the baby. And anybody who is a pro-life activist to any degree understands that this is an absolutely totally acceptable place. But here's the problem: it's not so much that it's fine that in order to save the mother that you ended up having to cause the death of the child. That's totally moral and understandable. Even if you're going, even the scenario where the baby might not survive until they're born, but you want to like kill them anyways. That gets a little more hazy morally, because a lot of people do that. They're like, oh, they're going to die very quickly because they have like their heart isn't developed properly, their brain has problems, and that's more okay.
Well, those are more iffy, mainly because of the insanely high rate of false reporting in these.
There is,
I believe last time I checked, it was a 23% falsehood.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, when they say, oh, like your baby is like, it has this defect, it has this problem. It's best to just abort because they're not going to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Nope. Do not, like, this is not a justification, simply because the falsehood rate and all they're trying to do is drum up profits.
Yeah, it's like we're living in a culture of death.
Yep.
And like to a lot of these people, they believe the more compassionate option is like just kill whatever's there because it's worse for you to have to suffer through the difficulties of raising a child that's has some defect or something like that, which delves very dangerously.
Even nowadays, they're
eugenics.
like, well, it's better to live a free and unburdened life. Like there was, of course, the Twitter post by, what's his face? That's David Hogg.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I'd rather have a Porsche and a puppy than a baby.
Yeah.
And it's like,
well,
this is the testament to the selfishness and narcissism of our culture.
Well, there was even like that one post by, I think that lady from The View, where she said that oh, I have like members of my family that are mentally ill or have this or that. They struggle, and it's a struggle, and it's difficult for everyone to be able to support them. And she's like, it would have been better for them if they had died rather than lived. And everyone kind of like, rightfully so, gave her a really hard backlash because she's basically saying you'd be better off dead.
Yeah.
And they don't see that. They don't see that that's the justification. So ultimately, like what this all shows is it shows first of all, like with Stacey Abrams, it shows that the left has no problem using all sorts of mistruths and deceptive kind of ways. Like the very things that they always accuse everyone on the right of doing, they do themselves, of trying to basically drum up controversy, create like mistruths and misinformation and all that kind of stuff to try to fool and scare people into buying their lies about like abortion. And then secondly, you have people that want to basically normalize abortion to such a degree that they want to basically say abortion's good because they saved my life. And it's like, therefore, all abortion's good. Like, there's a lot of subtle messaging, and you have to be really on top in order to be able to kind of get this stuff. So just beware. There's been a really large increase in a lot of deceptive and oftentimes very misleading talking points by a lot of people on the left when it comes to abortion. So just be on the lookout. It's something that you're going to see a lot of. So, yeah.
Yep.
All
right. Yeah, I was just checking something. But now we are going to move on to the news that you may have missed. Talk about the news that you may have missed. Because that is very important. So, jumping in, the Serbian president warns of great world conflict within 2 months. Worst situation since World War II. And this was from yesterday. So the president of Serbia has warned the planet is entering into a great world conflict that could take place within the next 2 months. Alexander Vucic made the alarming comments during the first day of the UN General Assembly session in New York. You see a crisis in every part of the world, he told the Serbian state broadcaster. I think realistic predictions ought to be even darker. Our position is even worse since the UN has been weakened and the great powers have taken over and practically destroyed the UN over the past several decades. Well, destroying the UN is not a bad thing. The Serbian leader cautioned that the war between Russia and Ukraine has moved on to a far deadlier phase. I assume that we're leaving the phase of special military operation and approaching a major armed conflict. Now the question becomes, where is the line, and whether after a certain time, maybe a month or two even, we will enter a great world conflict not seen since the Second World War. Yep. Vucic's remarks were made on the same day that the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, ordered an immediate partial mobilization of troops amounting to 300,000 soldiers. And they will use all of the means at our disposal to protect Moscow's territorial integrity. And Russia's Ukraine, there is a vote that's occurring within some of the more eastern Ukrainian provinces about whether to join Russia.
You know, something I heard that was interesting about there because of those votes that are supposed to take place in those regions in Russia or in Ukraine, is the theory is that if they end up voting to join Russia, then if the Ukraine tries to invade and to retake those areas, then Russia, I guess,
say it's a declaration of war because it's an invasion.
Yeah, well, that like that it's an invasion of their own territory and can justify
further use of force.
Further use of force, including potentially tactical nukes or something like that.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know. There's a lot of things that could happen in the next couple of months. Obviously, we're all kind of holding our breath. Taiwan, China is definitely making a lot of gestures that seem to be suggesting that they want to invade. Obviously, Iran is always a threat because they're clearly working. Well, they're working on their nuclear bombs and all that. I mean, they're a big enough threat that even Israel felt the need to go in there and to sabotage their nuclear program. So, I mean, you got to give Iran something there, and we're going to see some extreme volatile times coming soon because there's going to be food shortages. There's going to be a massive energy crisis and all this stuff leads to a lot of countries and a lot of uncertainty. So we'll see. Maybe he's onto something, but keep an eye on it. All right. So this next story is from the Post Millennial. Breaking: Facebook could lift Trump's suspension by 2023. Facebook announced in January of last year that it would block Trump from his platforms until January 20th, the day Biden was set to be sworn in. That ban has remained in place ever since. So here's what actually happened. So former President Donald Trump could have his Facebook ban lifted in 2023. Nick Clegg of Meta Platforms said in an event at an event in Washington, D.C. According to Gina Chon of Semaphore Media, Clegg is speaking with experts to assess whether the move should be made. It's the first time Clegg, who is president of Global Affairs that is in charge of deciding whether to lift the limit, has publicly discussed his limits. Obviously, they made a commitment that they would keep it on. We believe the risks of allowing the president to continue to use our service during this period are simply too great. Oh, give me a break. Therefore, we are expanding the block we have placed on his Facebook and Instagram accounts indefinitely and for at least the next 2 weeks until the peaceful transition of power is complete. So, what is going on? It's likely that Trump is going to run again.
Yep.
Very likely. After the midterms, you're going to probably see either DeSantis and Trump declare or both. We'll see what happens. But I think what's going to happen is that Facebook is realizing that if Trump runs again, there's going to be some very dicey legal aspects of banning. Because I think the reason why they couldn't kick Trump off Twitter is because he was a sitting president, and there was some kind of legal thing that a sitting president can't be banned from social media or something like that. So I think that's possibly them trying to cover themselves for that possibility. So we'll see what happens. Because let's face it, if they choose to keep him off Facebook indefinitely, even during his re-election, and if he gets elected again, guess who one of the first people or first companies that Trump will come after he's elected president? It'll be Facebook. So a lot of this sounds like a self-preservation. So anyway, Stephen, take the next one.
Indeed. Alrighty. So California has legalized human composting.
Lovely.
By 2027, the Golden State residents will have the choice to turn their bodies into a nutrient-rich compost.
So lovely.
They joined a growing number of states that allow residents to compost their bodies after death. A new law signed by Governor Gavin Newsom directs California officials to develop regulations for the practice known as natural organic reduction. Washington became the first state in the nation to legalize human composting, followed by Colorado and Oregon. Human composting typically involves putting a body into a steel vessel, then covering it with organic materials like straw, wood chips, and alfalfa. Microbes, of course, break down the corpse and the plant matter, transforming the various components into a nutrient-rich soil in roughly 30 days. Staffers of the special human composting funeral homes then remove the compost from the vessel and allowed to cure for 2 to 6 weeks. Family members can use the human compost or any other type of compost such as, or like any other type of compost, such as mixing it into a flower bed. They can donate it to be spread in conservation areas. Just don't. I would advise not to use it to make vegetables.
Because then you're eating
you're eating the nutrients of your loved ones.
I call me old-fashioned, but I miss the days when, like, human remains were considered sacred. Like, so sacred that, like, one of the biggest punishments that God promised on Israel for their horrible, horrible sin is that they would be left out, unburied, alive. That was like the worst that God could, promise them. Like, their like human remains were going to be like lying out in the fields for the birds to eat and all that. And let's face it, for a lot of the history of the West, one of the biggest difficulties was finding bodies to be able to practice on, because it was considered to be a massive taboo to dishonor a human body by basically picking through it after it's died and all that. Well, we've come full circle now. Now, like, have you ever been to a funeral, Stephen, where and all the offers they give you, they can take the teeth of your deceased ones and make jewelry out of them, their fingerprints. It's almost like grim. It's incredibly grim what they do.
It is.
Human bodies. It's culture of death out there. All right, next story. We got this story from the Post. Dilbert author claims
I switched them. Sorry. You get the James Top.
You suck. Okay, fine.
Because you wanted to talk about the James Top.
Oh, I just kind of brought it up. Anyway, so we're going to talk about James Top instead because Steven's unorganized. Anyways, this is from the Counter Signal. Hero veteran James Top sues legacy media journalist for slander. If anybody doesn't know who James Top is, he was the Army veteran who decided to march from, I think it was from Vancouver, all the way to Ottawa in protest of the government's COVID policies. The notice mentions journalist Rachel Gilmore, Global News and Chorus Entertainment Inc. as defendants. The defamatory article, inclusive of the URL tag, referred to Mr. Top as a white supremacist, among other things, wrote the lawyer. It was published without providing any evidence supporting their statements. Top marched across Canada, so we already covered that. We conduct ourselves with dignity, strength, and endurance at all times at Top at a stop in Ontario. If you're having issues, get a hold of somebody. Make sure you have water and food, mind the traffic, and be safe. Keep your head up. Don't block intersections. At all times, look out for each other. When first published, the August 18th piece titled Good PR, Why Anti-Hate Experts Are Urging Politicians to Step Up Vetting Practices had the words white supremacist far right beside Top's names in the URL. Take notice that Mr. Top intends to plead that the defamatory words were made deliberately, irresponsibly, and with malice. Now, here's a couple of things about this whole thing. Is the news media above this? No, not at all. Like, they're all a bunch of scammers, and like the media completely and totally made up a million lies about not only the truckers, the convoy, but clearly about Mr. Top. But another thing that's difficult, it's incredibly difficult to successfully win a defamation case. Because yes, you can prove that what was said was defamatory and did actually cause harm or either monetary, social harm or other kind of harms to the person. But the problem is proving motive.
Yeah,
proving that the people knew what they were doing was defamatory. And so I've heard many experts from like Viva Fry to even Stephen Crowder talked about it to a lot of other people. They've said that it's very difficult to make a defamation charge stick. So if Top is suing, that means that they must have like fairly decent case, because otherwise they're just throwing a whole bunch of money in. So I wish him well. I definitely hope he wins. The legacy news media, particularly Global News, is completely and totally corrupt. I mean, there's a reason why Global News is
going out of business.
basically on the brink of bankruptcy. So yeah, all the best to Top. I hope he does well. This guy is legitimately a commendable hero, Canadian hero. I think he deserves not to the same extent as Terry Fox, but he's up there in terms of Canadian figures that should be praised as commendable and honorable. So yeah, James Top, take it, Stephen.
All right. So Dilbert author claims woke mob is coming for his comic strip as it removed from 77 newspapers. Dilbert author Scott Adams, who's been drawing the comic since 1989, said the strip that pokes fun at the office culture was wiped from nearly 77 newspapers. So Lee Enterprises, which owns nearly 100 newspaper companies, terminated the contract with Dilbert for unknown reasons. Well, it's not unknown reasons. No, it's part of a larger overhaul, I believe, of comics, but why they decided what was in and what was out, that's not known to anyone except them, I guess, said Adams, who noted it was coincidentally happening after he incorporated wokeness into the stories. The artist said that several of the comic strips were also cancelled by Lee Enterprises, but each decision was made individually. The Post reached out to Lee Enterprises and Adams for comments, and of course Dilbert has appeared in thousands of newspapers across the US, and spawned several Dilbert-themed calendars, books, and even in a TV show that ran from 1999 to 2000. Recently, Adams started poking fun at the ESG movement, also known as the Environmental, Social, and Governance movement. In a recent strip from Tuesday, he introduced a new character named Dave, who is black but identifies as white. All the wokeness and anything that permeated from ESG, so that stuff made its way into the business world, and then it became proper content for Dilbert. Do they have a picture of... Yeah, I don't... Here, I'll see if I can find it. Dilbert ESG strip. Our ESG will drop if we open a new factory that adds CO2 to the atmosphere. I believe we could balance that out by adding more diversity to our board. How much CO2 do you plan to add? Our one non-binary board member's worth.
Got to balance it out. See, that's funny. That's actually really
is
decent.
Funny.
Yeah. Even Rose is bad. Spirit will not assist in nature, it never can.
Yeah, I don't know if this one's related to ESG.
Yeah, but this is the way of the world. Did you listen to the Timcast IRL from yesterday, Steven?
A little bit of it. I listened to the beginning.
So basically, they Timcast had two independent rock stars who had to go independent because, unfortunately, what they described was a music industry that is rapidly going after people, all sorts of work, and basically telling them all that you either comply with what we demand, or we're going to completely, we're basically going to remove you and make you invisible, make sure nobody can follow you. Mm-hmm. So it's working everywhere: music, business, even comic strips. So
yeah, well, this one is good. Dogbird's ESG rating service. Your core business involves giving digital lobotomies to other people's children, but you don't pollute as much as you could. And you did ask me for my pronouns, so I'm giving you the top ESG rating. This feels right. I think we're making a difference. Oh my goodness. Mm-hmm. Some of these are funny.
Good old Dilbert.
Good old Dilbert. So yes, this
should
not have been taken off.
That shows you that if you're funny, you're not going to do well in Hollywood or in popular culture.
In the new woke popular culture, you are not going to be. Okay, I'll check that. I will check all that out, Jeremy. But not today.
You'll check what out?
Oh, red heifers in Israel.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
So
if anybody's not aware, and probably a lot of people aren't aware of this, I'll very quick little recap. What's going on is there are a lot of rumors and a lot of people talking that Israel, particularly the cultural Israel, that they probably have most, if not all, of the requirements that are needed to build a new temple. They need the Ark of the Covenant, and there's a lot of rumors that they already have it, but they're keeping it under wraps. They need a lot of priests and all that to be able to kind of do the stuff, and sounds like they already have that. But the big thing, and this is one of the things that was kind of a big deal for a long time, is there's a very little known requirement in the law that says that you have to have a red heifer, which is a red cow, and it explicitly is crucial in order to be able to dedicate the temple. Without this cow, this red heifer, you cannot properly follow the law and thus make the temple actually ready to stand. And so the fact that Jeremy brought up the red heifer is he's bringing up the fact that they now have a large collection of red heifers, and that there's a lot of speculation of whether or not they're maybe planning to build a new temple within the next couple of years. And one big thing I'll let you guys know, because I've studied this, they don't need to build a temple where the Dome of the Rock is, because the actual location is most likely not anywhere near the Dome of the Rock, so they can actually build a temple without disturbing the Muslim
trying
holy
to
place.
have the whole international conflict and
obviously that's a big
issues
contentious
regarding
thing,
the Temple
so
Mount.
we'll see what happens with that. So yeah.
Anyways, all right,
Kind of a
so
big
you can
deal.
continue
Anyways.
with this last story.
Take the last one. Okay, so this is from Blaze Media. There's a video of a New York City man stabbed to death in dispute over not saying thank you. And this was a real thing. Actually, Stephen, rather than me jump into the story, why don't you actually play the video at the very bottom? Because it's worth. This is a new story of what actually happened. So
yeah, this is messed up.
Yeah.
More and developing right now, police in Brooklyn are searching for a killer after a man was fatally stabbed last night. Police say
this shows kind of the progression of the fight going in and out of the store. We're told there were a lot of words exchanged between the victim and the suspect. And then ultimately, someone who works at the store tells me the suspect went outside, and it looks like he got a knife from the bike that he was on, the e-bike that he was on, and ultimately that led to that deadly stabbing. The store owner says, not the store owner, the store employee actually, excuse me, says that he called 911. They were here right away.
My goodness.
Yep. So basically what happened was there was a shop, like a smoke shop in Brooklyn. Somebody held the door open for somebody else. And once they went in, the guy got really mad. He's like, aren't you gonna say thank you for me opening the door? And apparently they had a bit of a dispute. It got escalated, got heated. They started basically, physically getting into a physical altercation, and like they said, one of the guys went out to get a knife from his e-bike, and they ended up getting one guy ended up getting stabbed. Now he ended up dying because of this altercation. Now the reason why this is big news is because New York City is so quickly descending into an actual like complete dystopia of massive proportions. Like there are people getting killed in broad daylight on the subway, by getting stabbed or hit by a homeless person with a rock. There's Asian hate crimes that are happening. Violence and crime are exploding to a degree that it's unfathomable. Like I don't even know like if the number can be held up. But normally, this story shows how out of hand it's gotten. That a dispute over saying thank you, which you're in New York, good luck getting anyone to say thank you.
Yeah, New York.
Like a dispute over saying thank you it's now leading to somebody getting stabbed to death. Like that is how crazy it is. Like I talked to my family, a lot of my. And I remember like hearing from them, they would. I'm like, do you ever get like robbed? They're like, oh yeah, it's like such a common occurrence that they would actually go on a bus or the subway. They would actually carry a spare wallet. This is a real thing. They would carry an extra wallet with a little bit of money on it because if somebody came on that bus and demanding that people hand over their wallets, they would give them the fake wallets, so that their real wallet wasn't, they didn't have to get rid of their real wallet. And even though some people like caught on to this, they were like, that they're fine with that because you're at least giving them something, and it's more difficult to actually get anything out of like credit cards and bank cards or whatever. So that was normal for them. They lived in a city where literally you could be killed at any moment, and I was like, that's insane. Who can live in a city like that? Well, now. New York City is now becoming that kind of city. And it's crazy. Like, living in Calgary, I can't imagine that kind of thing, like, to that scale. But living in New York City is, geez, like,
it's
how can anybody live in a city like that? Yeah. So, yeah, pray for the people out there because they are really struggling.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
New York City.
New York City. This is what happens when your city and your district and your state is run by leftists.
And
our city is run by a leftist.
I was going to say our city is run
by a crazy leftist.
That means, unfortunately, that a few years down the line, our city is going to basically devolve into a completely unlivable city.
Well, our cops have already become agents of a corrupt state.
Yeah.
They have been for a while. Like, whenever I see the police here in Calgary, I'm just like,
yeah.
I used to trust you, and I definitely don't now.
Yeah, it's sad.
But now we're going to move on to Nothing to See Here. Oh, whoops. There we go.
Excuse me. All right, move on. Nothing to see here. Please disperse. Nothing to see here, please.
No, I never get tired of that.
Oh, it's truly great. So, from the Daily Wire, wave of lawmakers demanding investigation into Vanderbilt Pediatric Gender Clinic. So a groundswell of lawmakers are demanding an investigation into a Nashville pediatric gender clinic after shocking videos showed a doctor calling certain transgender surgeries huge moneymakers, and a health law expert saying conscientious objections to the surgeries are problematic. The pediatric transgender clinic at Vanderbilt University Medical Center performs gender-affirming double mastectomies on minor girls and offers puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones for minors as well, according to an expose from the Daily Wire's Matt Walsh. All hail Matt Walsh.
All hail Matt Walsh.
In one video uncovered by Walsh, a Vanderbilt doctor affiliated with an adult transgender clinic, but not the pediatric one, can be seen emphasizing the dollar signs around gender surgery. It's a lot of money, quote. These surgeries make a lot of money. VUMC Clinic for Transgender Health's Dr. Shane Siebold Taylor said in one video. Taylor said that gender-affirming double mastectomies could bring in $40,000, and a female-to-male phalloplasty could bring in upwards of $100,000. Another doctor says that objecting to gender surgery for religious or other reasons has consequences. Quote, I just wanted you to take home that saying that you're not going to do something because of your religious beliefs is not without consequences, and it should not be without consequences. Vanderbilt's health law expert and pediatrician, Dr. Ellen Wright Clayton. If you don't want to do this kind of work, then don't work at Vanderbilt.
You know, that language is like eerily reminiscent of what we heard during COVID. Because they said, like, remember how they said, like, you know, if you don't want to get a vaccine, that's your choice, but that choice has consequences.
Yep.
Like, remember who said
that? Trudeau?
Our prime minister. He basically, like, used this language that, this is mafia language.
Yep.
Like, anybody who knows, like, who's seen a mafia movie, they know that, in walks the two agents from the mob. They walk into your little corner, like, mom and pop shop, and they're like, boy, this is a nice store. Be a shame if something were to happen, like, say, an arson, like, fire might destroy it all, or somebody might come in and, like, wreck the place. Be a shame if that happened. But, you can avoid that by paying us, like, like this ridiculous amount of money. But if you don't, there's consequences. Like, this is the kind of language of people who basically use extortion and like veiled threats to try to force you to comply. That's what this woman did.
Yeah. So Vanderbilt opens its trans clinic in 2018. During a lecture that same year, Dr. Shane Taylor explained how she convinced Nashville to get into the gender transition game. She emphasized that it's a big moneymaker, especially because the surgeries require a lot of, quote, follow-ups.
Starting in January 1st of 2017, according to the Affordable Care Act, insurance carriers are mandated to cover medical expenses for trans folks. Some of our BUMC financial folks in October of 2016, starting a couple of years ago, put down some costs of how much money we think each patient would bring in. And this is only including top surgery. This isn't including any bottom surgery. And it's a lot of money. These surgeries make a lot of money. So female to male chest reconstruction can bring in $40,000.
She goes on. And of course, it's all about how much money they can make from these deluded, unfortunate individuals.
Poor unfortunate soul.
Yep.
By the way, do you know that transgenderism is one of the only medical conditions that is almost entirely self-diagnosed.
Yep.
Like entirely. Like anybody who questions that, they don't know how easy the process.
Yeah.
You can literally walk into a transgender clinic or like a Planned Parenthood. All you have to do is say that, yeah, I feel like I'm a body.
And then you are that thing.
Like the best example of that, obviously, was Lauren Southern, who with almost no
documentation,
no
whatsoever.
barriers of any kind, like basically
just
no
went
barriers.
in and said, I want to change my gender on my official documentation.
And she just did all the required things and she got it. That is how completely and totally irresponsible to let people diagnose themselves.
Yeah.
This is why I can't walk into a doctor's office and say, "Hey doctor, I have schizophrenia. Give me some drugs for that'll help me my schizophrenia." The doctor's gonna be like, "No, we have to diagnose you first.
Let's actually go through consultations.
I have multiple personality disorder. Let's
diagnose you.
Tourette syndrome.
Let's diagnose you.
Diagnose you. Oh, I have depression is easy. They will give you pills for that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't require diagnosis.
I am a woman. Okay. Oh, you are.
Yeah, and you are. And you're not. No one's allowed to. And it's gotten to such a bad state that here in Canada, we've actually made a law that says you cannot tell someone that their self-diagnosis is. And this is the problem here, and I just kind of frame it with this hospital and why this is so dangerous and irresponsible. What we are doing by letting children totally unilaterally deciding for themselves that they alone get to decide what they want to do with their bodies is we are removing all of the protections that have been built over the years to protect children from any kind of thing that could that could harm them in the long run. There's a reason why children cannot consent to having alcohol. There's a reason why they can't smoke. They can't vote. There's a reason why you can't a child cannot get medication without the parents and the doctors kind of. But what these people are doing is they're basically removing all protections. And one of the number one protections that children have is their parents. Because the parents are the people that by far care the most about these children and want them to do well. But also they're the ones that have the mental capacity to be able to evaluate the things that are going to be done to them. But by removing that, they're making children completely and totally vulnerable to anyone who wants to take advantage of them. And these doctors and these healthcare professionals are doing an incredible disservice.
Yep.
And it's horrible. So, yeah, this is the stuff that's happening. It's horrifying. It's a trend that is going to get children killed.
Yes, but thankfully there are people standing up against it, such as Tennessee's Republican governor quickly called for an investigation into the clinic, which is raising serious moral, ethical, and legal concerns, he said in a statement.
Serious, yeah.
We should not allow permanent life-altering decisions that hurt children or policies that suppress religious liberties all for the purpose of financial gain. We have to protect Tennessee children, and this warrants a thorough investigation. Good for him. Other lawmakers added their voices, such as Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn. Quote, we are shocked by what we have seen. We would hope that the VUMC would make better decisions. There's nothing healthy about mutilating the bodies of minor children. This is horrible, tweeted former Wisconsin governor and 2016 GOP presidential candidate Scott Walker. And there were, of course, other that commented. One of the most interesting things about all of this is that the website for Vanderbilt University Medical Center has been taken down. They removed everything, and thankfully Daily Wire screenshotted and saved and recorded all the videos so they can show what's actually going on. Because the interesting thing about organizations like this and organizations that expose stuff like this, like Project Veritas and Libs of TikTok, when Project Veritas and Libs of TikTok does an expose, immediately the websites and any other public material is taken down. They did the same thing with Boston University Hospital.
It's deleting the evidence.
Deleting the evidence. When something like this happens on the right and they try and do an expose about, say, a pregnancy care center, we're like, great. We know what's happening. Tell us more. We want what's going on in these institutions to be exposed. They know what they're doing is inappropriate. They know that what they're doing is only for their own social gain and monetary gain. And they know the majority of people, thankfully, unfortunately not for long, majority of people still oppose transitioning, and whether that's surgical or hormonal, to children. Unfortunately, that's changing.
Well, there's a joke I heard a while ago. I thought it was really funny. Basically, way back in this was like the 1950s or something like that. Somebody decided to pull a prank, and they sent out a letter to all, to an entire bunch of people, and basically the letter just said two things. It said all is revealed, flee now. It was meant to be a prank, just to kind of just to mess with people. What was surprising is that as soon as after sending out this letter, tons of high-ranking CEOs and important figures and politicians and all this kind of stuff, they suddenly fled the country. And so I was like, you don't do that unless there's guilt going on there. That's what's going on here, where you don't suddenly scrub and remove things from a website unless there's some guilt going on. Unless you got something to hide. And this hospital is acting incredibly guilty. And of course, the left is coming up with their usual how does the left, whenever you expose something shady,
stochastic terrorism.
Illegal, and they accuse you of being of you're going to get someone
inciting
killed.
Violence and hate, and you're going to kill people. There was what was that? Leah Torres. She's an abortionist. And she tagged the FBI, saying Matt Walsh's dangerous rhetoric is going to kill people. So please remove this and stop him. And it's like
that.
What?
Yeah, it's like that YouTuber. Remember that YouTuber who made that funny video of you want people to die,
Remy
rap song about it. Yeah, Remy. Yeah, he made that kind of like a funny song about it.
People to die.
And it's relevant. That's the fact is, Matt Walsh understands they basically operate from the exact same place. It's immediately it's all denials. Oh, gaslighting. Oh, you're totally wrong and all that. And then when they can't do that anymore, then they turn around and they try to play victim. And they try to cry oh, they're going to hurt us.
They try to appeal to the authorities.
We're the victims here. Victim. They cry and cry. And
anyone who opposes me must be shut down because my feelings got hurt.
And the thing is, he it's so predictable now that they knew in advance that they were going to delete everything, so they took precautions. And then secondly, they knew in advance that they're going to come up with like a completely and totally made up, sob story of like, well, we're the victims here, when in reality they're mutilating and harming children for profit. So yeah, they deserve all the flack that they got.
Oh yeah, they definitely deserve all the flack that they get. But they want to turn children into people like this individual, which is truly, truly demented.
No, nothing to see here, Stephen.
Nothing to see here. Forbes invites biological man trans activist to speak at women's conference. Dylan Mulvaney, a man who began publicly identifying as a female just 191 days ago. That's really short.
Yeah.
And demands others use she, them pronouns when referring to him, was invited to speak at the Forbes Power Women's Summit this year. So, according to this tweet, Dylan Mulvaney speaks about collaboration and authorship at the Forbes Power Women's Summit. Quote, there's a level of trust that needs to come from an older generation. We say we respect you enough to take the reins on this. Dylan now has 7.3 million followers on TikTok, where, quote, she highlights her transgender journey in a series titled Days of Girlhood, which has received over 750 million views in less than 100 days.
Probably not for the right reasons.
Yep. Mulvaney posted his experience about going to the conference, where he spoke on a panel with two women about his transition journey, as well as the social media to mainstream pipeline. The problem with his appearance is the simple fact that he indeed is a man, not a woman, who presents himself as an over-dramatized parody of a female. And this is one clip from one of his videos from day 66 of Girlhood.
So bad.
Oh, this guy's a freak.
Oh, yeah.
Day 66, being a girl, and today I'm in nature. Trees, I love them. Water, lakes, I love them. Heels, they're my hiking heels. I love them. Okay, come on. Bridges, love them. Coconut water, love it. Not an ad, just love it. Wind turbine, love it. Meadows, love them. Getting Lyme disease. Love ya.
Best part of the video. Get what you deserve. Fall over in the mud.
Get out of here.
Freak.
The thing is, like, this is the kind of thing that you would see someone like JP would do, like as a satire,
as a joke,
as a joke, because here's this person, this man, walking, like you can see all he's doing. He's wearing tight little like shorts, but then all he's got is a sports top.
Yep.
Nothing about him screams that he's like a. And then he acts by no means in a way that there's not a woman alive who acts like this.
Love it.
Organically.
Yeah.
Like this guy's acting more like a gay man.
Someone who's trying to be like a Legally Blonde to the extreme kind of rendition.
No, not even Legally Blonde, because Legally Blonde
made more sense.
Made more sense. It's actually like a woman who's like a valley girl. This guy's not even a valley girl. This guy's just a very like eccentric gay man. He's talking like a gay man. Like, oh my God, like,
my hiking heels, love them.
My hiking heels, love them. I'm like, that's the way that effeminate men talk. If you ever see really effeminate men, like, that are gay, effeminate gay men, they talk like that. And part of the reason they talk like that is because that's one way that they indicate to the opposite, to other men. I was going to say the opposite sex. To other men that they're gay and that they're basically like, that they're a potential prospect. That's part of the reason why they talk like that. But that is not how women talk. Women don't talk like that. They talk normally, and they have like a lower, like, higher pitch voice. And Adam's apple voices have developed like that. They talk normally, and they don't like walk around like, with their hands up like that, things like that. This guy is a sad. And the sad thing is, you're not allowed to criticize him. You're not even allowed to point out how absurd his behavior. Lest you are going to be absolutely destroyed. This is something that I think should be mentioned more. This is something called soft totalitarianism. Okay, we all know, and this is a concept that's borrowed from the book Rod Dreher, who wrote the book "Live Not by Lies." He studied totalitarian governments, and I still want to read this book, but he talked about it in an interview. He basically said there are two types of totalitarianism, and I think most people are aware of the one type, which is hard totalitarianism. That's the one where you say something, you're off to the gulag. You say something, and you're punished harshly and in a hard, like incredibly brutal ways. But the other one is the one that people are less acquainted with, which is soft. And that is the kind where if you do not say the thing you're supposed to say, there are social consequences. And some of them are harsh, some of them, but you're going to lose friendships. You're going to lose opportunities. You're going to be shut out from your work. You're going to face pushback. You're basically shamed or forced to basically comply with what they're saying in order to comply. That's soft totalitarianism, and that's the kind of thing that keeps people like the children, like the kids in that school in Canada, from being able to speak out against what happened with that completely out of line teacher. You can't speak out. Why? Not because you're going to thrown off to jail as a kid, but because there are consequences to speaking out, and that those consequences are soft, and they exist everywhere on every level. Now, we talked before about how human bodies they're no longer sacred. Okay, they're not sacred anymore. You cannot, you can do whatever you want to a body. You want to take a dead body and I don't know, hang it up in your yard as a scarecrow. All power to you, because it's no longer sacred. But you know what is sacred? These people.
Yep.
These people are considered to be sacred. It's something that's sacred. It's something that is completely out of bounds. You can't touch it. You can't violate it. You can't
talk about it negatively.
You can't talk. It's taboo. These people are sacred,
and
they get sacred.
Even addressing it, saying that I'm glad that I didn't turn out like that. Such as this story from a few weeks ago from Brittany Aldean. And she has been attacked relentlessly about it. So, this is more recent. Actually, this is an older story, but it's relevant today.
Didn't it
so
say
my
September
Barbie.
22nd?
What?
It says September 22nd on top.
No, that's today's date.
Oh.
The article is from the end of August.
Oh,
so my Barbie. Jason Aldean defends wife amid woke attacks over tomboy joke. So country music star Jason Aldean has chimed in on the viral conversation surrounding his wife, saying she was grateful to her parents that they let her tomboy face just be that, a phase. In a social media video showing Brittany Aldean getting ready last week, the fashion designer says that she's loving this girly life. I'd really like to thank my parents for not changing my gender when I went through my tomboy phase. I love this girly life.
Can you put it up?
Let's take me to Instagram. I feel molested. That's gonna get us flagged for.
Oh, the sound?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Never mind.
So her post seemingly referenced recent medical and political discussions. While many have praised Aldean's post, others took to Twitter in anger. From Cassidy Pope. You'd think celeb beauty brands would see the positives in including LGBTQ+ people in their messaging. But instead, here we are, hearing someone compare their tomboy face to someone wanting to transition. Real nice. Yeah, because that's exactly what happens.
This person doesn't understand how this works.
They do not understand how children get caught in this.
Because all you need, I mean, like they were saying, like an example, there's people at the Boston hospital, the one that scrubbed their website and all, who were saying, and we featured this a while ago, they were saying that, children know they're transgender even at 2 years old, even from the
time that they start potty training.
Yes. And what are some of the tip-offs that somebody's transgender? Oh, they don't like girly haircuts.
Standing to pee or something like that.
Yeah, they're standing to pee, something like that. So if you think that they're not pushing very vulnerable children into the transgender like pathway, you're not paying attention.
Yeah.
Because there are literally child predators that we call groomers in schools that are literally making it their mission to not only talk impressionable and easily confused children into believing that they are transgender and telling them these completely made up stories about how it's nothing but sunshine and flowers and lollipops, when in reality, the very thing that they mentioned in that Vanderbilt story, the female to male something plasty or like a surgery, phalloplasty. We know that this surgery is
it's horrifyingly dangerous,
and it was featured in the documentary. What is a woman? And that guy basically said, like, they don't have the horror story. That they're basically playing Frankenstein for money. And these children have no idea what they're getting in. So, yeah, this person is basically like just repeating, like, talking points from leftist, like, things. They're in a cult. It's really what it is. They're in a cult. Yeah. And so they can't.
I do like this response from Jason. I'm glad that your parents didn't let you undergo gender transition surgery, because then you and I wouldn't have worked out. So in the response to these attacks, Brittany explains some parents want to be accepted by society so badly they're willing to make life-altering decisions for their children who aren't old enough to comprehend the consequences of their actions fully. Yep. That is 100% correct. And these hospitals and these institutions are exploiting the parents' desire to be accepted, the child's desire to be accepted, because they know that they can profit off of it, and society, or the kind of leftist establishment society that we have allowed to happen, is encouraging this because they know that if they can drive that wedge between parents and children, if they can say, well, your child needs this support and you're being unwilling. That's one way that they can just say, yep, you're an unfit parent and we're going to take them away from you.
Yeah. I think that one thing that we all have to remember, they're trying to shame you into silence. They're trying to, this is such an insidious thing. They're trying to shame you into saying, like, wait, you don't support children being able to find their true selves,
to live their true
You're
selves,
a monster.
to live their truth.
But think about this for a second. They are advocating for, like, literally, like, cutting off healthy body parts of healthy children because of this experiment, this social experiment that they're. It's, imagine somebody taking their child, imagine you being a parent and somebody takes your child, takes them to a hospital, and they basically cut off their, telling them, like, you know what, it's better, superior, far more superior to be like armless and all that.
You're transabled.
You would be absolutely right in being like, that is horrible, and you'd be upset, and everyone would be right. But this is the gaslighting that they're doing. They're trying to convince you that you're a bad person if you don't support mutilating and actually cutting off their body part. They use euphemism to try to make it sound prettier. But imagine, like, we even saw some of the videos that were shared about Vanderbilt had, like, nice sounding music, but what the people were describing was horrifying.
Yeah.
Right? This is what they do. They try to put a happy, like, colorful banner
to
on
make
things
it
that
seem
should
nicer
be
and
horrible.
more socially acceptable than it is.
Yeah. So you're not the bad guy here. You're not in the wrong. You're not wrong for thinking this is horrible what they're doing. And that you're not wrong for thinking that man was going out into the middle of, like, a field and trying and demanding that everyone must speak his reality. He's in the wrong. Like, if somebody comes up to me on the street and says, I'm a bunny rabbit, but you have to call me a bunny rabbit. You have to pet my head when I
You
when I go like
my
this,
truth,
you have to
despite
tap
what
me on the head.
reality and common sense says.
Yeah, because I will say this. I've said it before, but it's very important. There's a humongous difference between somebody changing their name and somebody demanding that you use their pronouns, because names are totally subjective. Stephen could change his name tomorrow to Bob, and that's totally acceptable because a name is completely an arbitrary thing. You can change it. If he wants to be called Bob or Billy or Big Bob, whatever, it's fine. Call him that. But if Stephen is tomorrow asking me to state a reality that is not the same, he's asking me not to be respectful. He's not asking me.
I'm asking you to outright lie.
Yeah, to state a reality, like a statement of reality.
Yeah.
Just like it's wrong. If wrong for me as a Christian to go around and tell everyone God is good all the time, and if you don't say the same thing, you're horrible and you should go to prison. That's wrong. To force people to do that.
Yeah.
But it's not wrong for a person who's transgender to say, I'm a woman, and you have to use language that basically says that I'm a woman. Otherwise, you should go to prison if you don't comply. It's the same thing. These are the tactics of cults. These are the tactics of users. And these are the tactics of groomers. And I will go beyond that. These people are child predators, because child predators try, just like if Stephen finds out that some creepy person is talking to his child on the internet, trying to encourage the child to do things secretly without telling his parents, he's going to have a little beatdown with this idiot. But somehow, if this is happening in a school, that's apparently totally acceptable. You see how they're doing this? These are bad people trying to present themselves as good people. They're not. So don't be ashamed. You are not wrong for being against this stuff. And you are not wrong for speaking out on it. Yes, there's consequences because we're slowly transitioning into a soft totalitarian society.
But that doesn't mean that standing up is the wrong course of action.
Absolutely.
So continue to stand, continue to fight, continue to support truth and reality over fiction and delusion.
There is something to see here.
There's something to see here now.
Yeah.
But we shouldn't cower behind what we cannot see.
Amen.
All right. So that's going to be the end of today's live stream. Thank you for watching. Thank you for participating in the chat.
Yeah.
And for those watching on our video platforms later, such as YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, and YouTube, of course, like, share, comment, subscribe. And feel free to tell us how we're doing. If you're following us on our text platforms, such as Facebook, Gitter, Twitter, Parler, all of the above, then you know what to do. If you don't know what to do, then I would suggest getting off those platforms and enjoy nature, which you clearly are enjoying right now.
Yeah, but not like that guy.
Not like that guy. Ooh.
I like my coconut water. I love you, water station.
Yeah, and do not watch the rest of his videos. That was one of the tamer ones, and that's saying something. Yep, they're crazy and psychotic. And the guy clearly looks like a man, and everybody's just like, "Oh yes, you're a woman, and it's so wonderful and beautiful." No,
yeah,
but that was a bit of a tangent.
That's the tame kind of person. The other side, see the underbelly.
Yeah.
Remember that one guy we featured a while back that was trying to meet up with a 9, 6, and a 4-year-old to have sex with, and these pedophile hunters caught up with him.
And then did the police arrest the pedophile hunters?
Yeah, they did, because they were harassing this poor person. This, by the way, there's a very dark underbelly in the LGBT community that you should be aware of. It is very, very scary, and one of the most unspoken parts of it is that there is an incredibly, very large portion of the LGBT community that are legitimately pedophiles, and they are trying with all their might to try to get their next goal get rid of like age of consent laws, because then they can come for your children, like legitimately. So yeah, I don't know. It is a scary world, and you should be very, very wary about believing that these people are completely and totally like the best of us when they are not. There's a very like giant elephant in the room that everyone should be watching out for. You just typed something. I don't know what
Yeah,
it
I
is.
did. Oh, I was making a mini little joke. I'm like, me tries to sign off show. Danny continues right where he left off.
Go sign up for the show. Go for it.
All right, so Danny, sign us up.
And another thing, there's the
I will kill you.
All right, so we're the forming. Why be rude? You can be shrewd instead. Thank you for watching and listening. We'll see you again next.
Yeah, we'll be back on Tuesday for another Tuesday News Day. So until then, have a fantastic weekend. And as always, God bless.
Good night, everybody. So predictable.
But it's good.